Hello, stampers and fellow paper crafters. It's Cindy Lynn with My Inky Fingers. Thank you so much for joining me today on my YouTube channel and blog. Today is so exciting. It's my very first collaboration with Martin Mayhem. We are collaborating to bring you guys 6 tips to instantly improve your card making. So if you came here from Martin's channel, welcome. We're happy to have you. If you're brand new here and you're like, what's going on? You're going to fit right in. Don't worry. You're going to love the video. I like to put up a card right here of what my workstation looks like before I start my card. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you get to see what it looks like when I'm done making my card. Sometimes it's a mess, sometimes it's not. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Let's get into these tips. I'm going to use one stamp set, and that's To a Wild Rose. And our first tip is going to be blending on your stamps. So when you have a flower or a leaf or any kind of stamp like that, when you ink it up with your first color and then you bring in a foam dauber and you kind of just edge it and add a little bit more dimension, it really makes a huge difference in your image. So I'm going to show you the first impression here, and that's just going to be with the petal pink. So as you can see, it's pretty, but to me it's just kind of flat. So I'm going to come in with the Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to kind of edge around the outside, a few little dots here and there, maybe on the inside. And as you can see now, it just adds so much more interest and dimension. So I'm going to stamp that again. So because that is the bottom stamp, you want that to be your lightest color. So there it is, just on its own with the petal pink, and I'm going to come in with the Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to put a little bit around the edges there, and I'm using a very light touch when I do that. I really like visually the dimension and interest that that adds to the flower. So for the next layer, I'm going to start with the Calypso Coral, and then I'm going to do a little bit of inking with my darkest color, which is the Cajun Craze. So as you can see there, it's a little bit hard to see on camera because those colors are a little bit close, but in person you can really see that I added that extra color around the edges. Now, I didn't have an absolute perfect overlay, but I'm not going to stress out about it because when I come in with the liner there, the very last stamp, and use the Cajun Craze, it kind of hides where I didn't have a perfect lineup. So when it's perfect, it's not homemade anymore, right? So there's those 3 layers on the one rose. And as you can see, I just turned my paper. I didn't even move the stamps. So that's another little extra tip. And then for the leaves, I'm going to match my designer series paper, and I'm going to pull out the 3 greens that I think might look good on there. And I ended up picking the Pear Pizzazz and the Old Olive. Now there's not a huge difference in these, but just adding that little bit of extra with the foam dauber with your darker color being the Old Olive. So the Pear Pizzazz I put down first, and then the Old Olive, and I'll bring you in a close-up here so you can see. It just kind of adds more dimension again and more visual interest. So a little tip here, what you want to do is use a piece of acetate. I've got a printed one with graph paper on it, but I laid that down first when I flipped my paper, just so that I made sure I didn't get any ink in the wrong spot, making sure that I didn't have to move that stamp to fit in that other little corner. So for the top layer, I'm just going to go straight in with the Old Olive, and I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp that 2 times. So as you can see now, the leaves just have a lot of dimension, and it just really adds that much more to your card. So I'm going to pull out the coordinating dies for that stamp set, and I'm going to get these all cut out. Gonna sandwich those in my plates for my big shot, run that through. Now for the next tip, embossing your backgrounds just takes your card again to the next level. So adding just that texture makes a huge difference. The card isn't just laying there flat and the paper disappearing into the card. So my tip here for this heirloom set is die cut out your oval first and then position it in your embossing folder. You'll get a perfect impression every time. I've tried it the other way and I can never get the die to line up. So now another tip, I've got a Tim Holtz edge distressor. I did go and emboss this paper and I cut that out, but the designer series paper, I did emboss that with the subtle embossing folder just to give it a little bit more texture. Now, just to again take it to another level, I'm going to pull out that distress tool and I'm just going to kind of distress my edges. And I like that it reveals white because the background of my card, the actual thick whisper white cardstock, is white. So just adding this extra distressing and revealing those white edges kind of gives your background somewhere to stop. It doesn't just disappear into the card, right? So here I'm giving you a close up. What I do is I just apply a little bit more pressure, holding it relatively firmly and cutting into that card. Now, if you watch my videos, you know I like to lay things out before I glue it down. So I'm going to lay this out, and I've got that little sprig out of the wild rose dies. And I'm gonna, just another tip here for you, you can cut out behind things on your background paper. So instead of taking out a whole nother piece of paper, just die cut out some of your pieces from where you're not going to see them anyway. So now I'm just going to add some dimensionals, and I want my dimensionals to only go where the rose is going to touch that white piece of the heirloom die that I cut out. And of course it's gold on the back, right? I'm just using up all of my supplies, and I'm making sure I don't throw anything away. The leaves, I'm not going to add any dimensionals. Now there's those little pieces I cut out of the background, and you know, I just wasn't feeling this. I thought they just don't pop. So I flipped them over, and I was in my mind, I'm looking at this and I'm going, the colors didn't quite match. I did go and cut out an extra one thinking if I got some more of the reds, it might blend really well, but I really wasn't feeling those in any way, shape, or form. So you're going to see here in a minute, I'm going to switch it up. Now I did glue that down, and I'm just going to put my F block over top. In a good 30 seconds, it's totally all set, and I don't have to worry about it slipping on me. Now I'm going to use the dimensionals, and I'm just going to go right around the ring of that embossed image. And when you emboss that, you'll see what I mean, because it does need the dimensionals in there so that it doesn't end up flattening in the mail or whatnot. So I'm going to position that ring, that oval, directly over top of where I cut out those pieces. I'm going to put my glue in there, and then that gold negative piece, I guess it would be, I just flipped that over, and now it's revealing the white. I'm going to lay down these roses here, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue where the rose is going to touch the oval frame. I guess I should call it a frame. I keep calling it a ring. Nevertheless, there's the second one, and I'm just going to kind of see visually where I want that, and then just put that right down. And then I'm going to put the leaves in there. And this is where I decided I had to go a different direction with those little sprigs. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel like they were going to pop in any way, shape, or form. They just kind of disappeared into the card. And that's what you want to look at when you're making your card. Do things disappear, or do they speak for themselves? So I tried cutting them out in gold, and that was just way too much gold. They disappeared again. So I went in a completely different direction, and I pulled out my Butterfly Beauty dies, and I cut out a few of those little sprigs in there. If you watched my unboxing, I did mention that there's so many times I wanted those little sprigs, and now I've got them, so I'm going to use them. So as you can see now, just adding that white in there just totally changed the whole way that card looked. So now for tip number 3, we're going to talk about choosing and placing your sentiments. Now, that's where I put my sentiment. I could have put it there. I could have put it over there on the right, or I could have put it straight across the middle. So let's look at that one more time. I mean, what I was going for was just trying to find a place on my card where it just kind of seamlessly sat there, made a statement, didn't overpower the card, but at the same time didn't disappear. So once I had decided where I wanted to put my sentiment, I had to decide what kind of sentiment. Now, what I do is I mentally make a note to myself of what kind of feeling this card has without the sentiment even there. And this is just for me. I never choose my sentiment pretty much until this point. So I have a elegant, classy feeling going on. That's how I feel about the card. So I wanted to choose an elegant, classy sentiment. So as you could see, I just pointed out a few there. I want to make sure that the script and the text, the font, matches with what I'm going for. Now, I also decided that I wanted to emboss this. So I pulled out my Versamark, my embossing buddy to destatticify my paper, and my gold embossing powder. I'm going to use one of my blocks, and I'm just going to stamp this on some scratch Whisper White paper. And then I'm going to heat it till it's smooth and melted. Now, quick tip, you probably noticed I flipped my Versamark upside down. I keep it upside down so that all the ink is sitting on the top of the pad when I'm ready to use it. Now, I did use Label Me Lovely, and I gave you a close-up there of how I just trim off the end. I just go corner to corner, point to point, and then I lay it back down on my card just to get a visual of where I want that sentiment to sit before I cut it too short. And that looks about right to me. I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of the sentiment where it's going to touch the green Designer's Series paper. I don't want the dimensionals on the actual gold oval. So I've got those placed down. Now, just to take this card to the next level and a little bit more pizzazz, I'm going to emboss my insert, which is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And that is going to go on the inside. I'm going to put all my dimensionals on there, a little glue around the outside. And you know me, I always got to put glue on my corners. I don't want no dog ears on my card. So I'm going to lay that down. I'm going to stick that F block on there for about 30 seconds until I know it's not going to move. And then the last finishing touch, and this was an afterthought. I almost forgot about it, to be totally honest with you. I'm going to pull out the soft suede, and I'm just going to add a little bit in there. Now, had I have thought of that earlier, I may very well have double stamped those and put some clear embossing powder over there. So there was a side view of what it looked like without that inside done. Now, as promised, there's my workstation when I'm done. It really wasn't too bad this time. I've absolutely seen worse. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I've got some cute bloopers for you. So what did you think of those tips? Do you think any of those 3 are going to help improve your card making right away? Be sure to head over to Martin's channel if you haven't already. I'm going to link his video right down below. And if you go to the home page of my channel and you click the channels tab, I actually featured him there. So he's super, super easy to find. If you came here from Martin's channel and you're still here, then you're my kind of viewer. So make sure that you like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of this. And until I see you again, take care and happy stamping. Let's make these. I hope you really make sure if you haven't headed over, I'll let you see what it looks like when I'm done making my. Let's make these. Let's get into these tips.